Jason Bermas actually did a latest video regarding the TMZ documentary, The Fifth Plane. He hasn't seen it yet, but he had some thoughts about the newest revelations that he heard, which I agree with him. It isn't new. But I cut out this part of his talk, which was an hour long. I'm not going to play the whole thing. So I thought this was pretty much interesting and like to get my thoughts on it since he won't talk to me because I'm a troll, according to him. Troll.
I want to say to my Democratic friends in the Congress is that they need to be very cautious not to seek political advantage by making incendiary suggestions, as were made by some today, that the White House had advance information that would have prevented the tragic attacks of 9/11.
The Department of Justice shepherded and protected a bunch of these guys.
Clark.
Shepherded and protected a bunch. Well, if you talk about the hijackers afterwards, yeah, they protected the Saudi Arabian government from any type of further investigation. And currently, they still withhold information that could be beneficial to the victims' families, who are using law firms like Cridley and Creedler and Molly Rice to sue the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their part in the September 11 attacks. It's no longer a conspiracy with the latest revelations from Operation Encore. It's proven that you had government officials inside the United States in the year 2000 that gave financial and logistical support to Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and Hani Hanjour.
Firms, and in June, July, and August 2001, the Central Intelligence Agency warned the president in daily briefings of unprecedented indications that a major al-Qaeda attack was going to happen against the United States.
It was so well known that the United States...
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Those are vague warnings. They intentionally withheld information from the State Department of Justice, as well as certain employees who worked for the FBI in New York under John O'Neill at the Bin Laden issue station, codenamed Alex Station. What did they withhold? Well, they withheld the fact that you had already had two al-Qaeda operatives who were at a high-level summit meeting in Malaysia that were inside the United States and had dual U.S. visas. It's not a conspiracy. It's a fact, because they testified to this fact in the 9/11 Commission in the Joint House. In fact, I would rather have you watch the Joint House inquiry where Carl Levin is actually interviewing Tom Wilshire, the deputy director of Alex Station, Kofi Black, the director of counterterrorism, and George Tenet, the director of the CIA, where they all gave conflicting testimonies about information sharing with the FBI regarding those two men. And George Tenet basically committed perjury. I've done, I don't know how many countless videos about this, trying to tell the public, here you are, especially the truth movement, you want inside job? Well, there it is, right? Stop going with the swap planes. Stop going with the living hijackers nonsense, because it's all a dead end. You want real, actionable information that we can actually do something with? Well, this is one of them. This is one of them. And the warnings, by the way, warnings. Well, this is a deeper conversation, and I'll try to do my best to make it short here. I've also done videos where I talked about the intelligence services, mainly the NSA and the CIA, who were monitoring bin Laden many years prior to the September 11 attacks. Now, it depends on when they started listening to bin Laden's satellite phone. Some people say within the FBI and CIA that the NSA began monitoring bin Laden when he was in Khartoum, Sudan. The CIA may have known about bin Laden even as far back as Afghanistan. I can't discount that. I think that's pretty reasonable speculation. But we do know through the public record that either 1992 or 96, the NSA were listening to bin Laden's satellite phones. There was a satellite phone transaction in Long Island, New York in 1996 by a person who was affiliated with Hamas that was under a separate investigation by the FBI named Ziad Khalil, who then gave that phone to an associate in Virginia, Khalid al-Fawaz, who actually was an associate to bin Laden in Al-Qaeda, worked in Al-Qaeda out of the London office. And that phone was then shipped to Tora Bora, Afghanistan. The FBI, monitoring Ziad Khalil, knew about Fawaz and asked the NSA if they could track that phone and see if it was decrypted. And they found out that, yes, that satellite phone, which was an Insermat satellite phone, was decrypted, and that the NSA could listen to phone calls or collect the information like receiving numbers or outgoing numbers. And the NSA did that. And what they found was that there was this one number that kept calling, and bin Laden kept calling it repeatedly, and not just him, but also other high-ranking Al-Qaeda officials like Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri and the military commander Mohammed Atef, also known as Abu Hafs al-Masri. And God knows who else was using that phone, right? So the NSA then started bugging that house in Yemen, which was owned by an associate of bin Laden from the Afghan Soviet days named Ahmed al-Hada. And what they found, the NSA, was that this house was basically a global Al-Qaeda communications network. In other words, why were Al-Qaeda calling this house? Because Al-Qaeda operatives that were living in Pakistan, Jordan, or Saudi Arabia they were known to the intelligence community, and their phones were bugged because they don't have the protections like the United States does. We don't have that anymore, but before 9/11, we used to enjoy the privacy of not having intelligence services listen to our calls. But they called this house in Yemen, and when they wanted to contact another Al-Qaeda operative or leader in Afghanistan, they would leave messages at this house, and then this house in Yemen, which was an Al-Qaeda a friendly type country, they would relay that message to a person. So this became the communications hub. And this became the most surveilled house in the United States. And Jason Bermas, if you're ever watching this, I doubt it, but if you are, I'm not railing you, but just talking with you. Just imagine what they were talking about on these phones. They're talking about operations against the United States. Who's listening to them? Well, the NSA is. The CIA was listening in 96. What was created in 1996? Conveniently, the bin Laden Issue Station. What also was created in 1996? Able Danger, which was a defense intelligence agency program, which was a data mining program collecting information about terrorist subjects inside the United States. Two and a half years later, the FBI created the bin Laden unit. This was in response to the embassy attacks in 1998 in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. So now the whole, 1996, that's 5 years prior to 9/11. 5 years. So if they were talking about the 9/11 attack, say in 98, 99, if we went by the information gleaned from torture from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed Ramzi bin al-Shibh. Well, you know what? I know you have to do that. I forgot. Ramzi bin al-Shibh and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed gave interview to an Al Jazeera reporter named Yosri Fuda. This is before they were captured, and they admitted to their roles about planning 9/11. So let's just say in 98, 99, that they were talking about the planes operation. That's 2 years prior to 9/11 to get things ready to make sure the attacks are successful so that we could take advantage. That's a reasonable speculation, probably the most rational. And these operations, like you're showing here, which is Operation Mascow, mass casualty damage at the Pentagon. Well, who would know about that? Well, for years, the Pentagon's always been a target by radical fundamentalists. They didn't make it secret. The World Trade Center, Pentagon, Sears Tower. Heck, you could watch DJ Thermodetonators films, which I know you won't. You don't like the guy. Basically talks about this stuff regarding even previous to bin Laden. Ramzi Youssef, the Landmarks plot, talks about bombing what? The World Trade Center, George Washington Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, Jacob Javits. So I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, this is not a secret. These targets were known to the intelligence agencies. Now here's the conspiracy, is that they knew it, but they didn't stop it. They didn't take stricter security measures. What I'm saying is, was there any stricter security measures regarding planes, regarding INS, entry into the country from countries like Saudi Arabia? No, I mean, you do talk about, which I'm glad you do, you talk about the Jeddah consulate, which was the Visa Express program. I rambled on long enough, but what I'm trying to tell the audience here is that, look, this information was known to the intelligence community and maybe certain people in the State Department. Remember, they want plausible deniability. In other words, they don't want to know specifics. Why? Because they're in the public sphere. They're interviewed by people. You want people like George Bush to know every specific about 9/11 when he's damn near a fool? No. Even to someone as sharp like Dick Cheney. Do you think the people in the know regarding JFK's assassination, they want to know specifics? No. There's a need to know. Now, does that mean that Bush probably knew about an attack that was coming? Oh, yeah. I mean, the CIA even tried warning him. I mean, you do talk about that too. And you talked about it in Fabled Enemies. I saw the film. I watch your videos. I watch. I know you don't watch mine. You think I'm a heavily critic of you. I am in certain respects. I mean, your swap theory is without basis. There's no evidence for it. But you hold on to it. I mean, you still use loose change at your disposal every once in a while. I would stay far away from it. One of the worst films about 9/11, period. Jason, sorry. It is. Terrible. But I wouldn't put you in the same sense as like Rebecca Roth or Judy Wood. Because you're right there. But the whole swap theory, I never understood that. I can't understand it. But like I said, it's not a critique video of you because I think you have what it takes to be a fantastic independent reporter. But there are certain issues about 9/11 you just can't shake. And I don't know why.
Had done several drills with this exact scenario prior to 9/11.
No, wait, I just want to, it's not an exact scenario. It is the plane crashing at the Pentagon, but for them, it's a plane crashing from the top. Like if a plane actually dove down and crashed. And it wasn't a hijacking. Just crashed into the Pentagon. This may mask, I mean, this project took place in December 2000. This may mask I mean, this would make sense. This would mask that their intelligence told them that, hey, yeah, the Pentagon is going to be hit by these people that are now inside the United States taking flight lessons. Because what happened in December 2000, Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shih got their pilot certificate ratings approval from Huffman Aviation. That's what.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at another example of where, despite the conventional wisdom, there were people in the United States who actually were preparing to defend against the kind of attacks which occurred here on 9/11. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD for short, has been defending the skies over the U.S. and Canada for almost 50 years, 46 to be precise. USA Today reports that in the 2 years before the attacks on September the 11th, NORAD conducted exercises using hijacked airliners as weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about the war games on that day? Conventional wisdom. Oh, despite conventional wisdom. Now, how does conventional wisdom become conventional wisdom? It's called psychological warfare. It's called actual misinformation and disinformation. It's called propaganda campaigns. See, at least behind the boy idiot, in the clip before, you had like a Darth Cheney looking mother trucker. I mean, that's an evil looking dude. At least he looks the part, right?
And one target was the World Trade Center. Here's ABC's Brian Ross.
President Bush has said again and again that no one could have imagined what Osama bin Laden ordered for September 11th.
We knew he hated us. But there was nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government, that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
They drilled it. They didn't just envision it, they did it. I mean, my God.
On such a massive scale.
But that turns out not to be true. U.S. military planners did envision and practice those very scenarios. As reported by USA Today, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, conducted exercises with fighter jets, simulating hijacked planes flown into the World Trade Center in the 2 years before the attacks. Pentagon planners also envisioned the attack on the Pentagon 5 months before it happened.
One of these drills was run on June 1st and 2nd of 2001. Amalgam Virgo was an exercise where multiple attack scenarios would be occurring simultaneously, including attacks from cruise missiles, unmanned aerial vehicles.
And I want people to understand that these were the publicly available UAVs 22 years ago. 22 years ago. We've got plenty more that have never been seen. And this, again, were the public war games. There's so many more classified war games.
Right. But since we don't know about those, we can only speculate, right? Don't infer these as that's what's exactly what was going on, because you don't know if they were. Now, I know what you're hinting at regarding UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, right? This is a huge problem in the 9/11 truth movement, because so many people think that instead of hijacked aircraft that crashed into the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and even in Shanksville, that these planes were the ones that crashed. Now, here's a problem that you face, you specifically, and people that think like you, is that you now have to involve the FAA, the New York, Boston, and Washington centers. You have to involve the FBI, FEMA, and then the thousands and thousands of first responders that were in New York, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, to go along with the story that these were hijacked aircraft for 22 years, right? Now, if you're involving people in high-level positions of government, it's feasible, but it's still hard because they are public people working in these sectors. But when you're involving the public sector, regular people in these city and local jobs, how are you going to make sure that they go along with the program 22 years now? Do you have one agent tracking their every movements 24 hours a day, listening to their phone calls, making sure that they never relate the story that doesn't go along with the official narrative for 22 years? It's called no, it's impossible. It's much easier to allow defense systems like NORAD needs and the Air National Guard to not interfere with the hijacked aircraft and have them crash into their designated locations. And you don't have to have so many people involved. You don't have to worry about any leaks. Everyone on the plane is killed because now you have to take those people on the plane and kill them elsewhere. No, you just, now they're dead. And the hijackers are dead. Now they can't speak, right? So now you could just take advantage. This is why I never understood why you went this route. And I don't understand why people go this route. Just because you believe in hijacked planes or hijackers doesn't mean that you are agreeing with the official narrative. There's more to the official narrative than just hijackers and hijacked planes. A lot more. And if you ever read the 9/11 Commission report or the Joint House Inquiry report in its entirety, you'll notice things that are missing if you are an investigator in 9/11 and you know about those missing items. I do. They don't talk about the house in Yemen. They don't talk about the Able Danger program. They don't talk about the Israeli art student ring or the moving front companies, or basically barely anything about the Saudi intelligence ring that was in California, and basically whitewashed all these things. You put those pieces together, and all of a sudden, you get a picture of 9/11. You don't get the whole picture because not everything is declassified. I hope what I'm saying is making sense.
A lot of this is setting bin Laden up as the boogeyman.
No, man. Why are you going? Why do you have to do this? It's not a secret. You just played it. It's not a secret that bin Laden wanted to attack the United States. How about this for a conspiracy? Bin Laden made it known to the public and through his interviews throughout the years, long before 9/11, he's coming to attack the United States. I mean, there was a CIA cable, a presidential daily brief. You know about it, August 6 PDB. August 6, 2001, bin Laden determined to strike in the United States. Condoleezza Rice lied about even just the title, because according to her, she says bin Laden determined to strike United States. And then Richard Benveniste, who was a panelist in the 9/11 Commission, basically said inside the U.S. And she says, well, that's not what we thought it would be, right? Plausible deniability. So they didn't take the measures to make sure that bin Laden is either killed. Now, look, throughout the mid-1990s, there were CIA officials, some of them officers, legendary officers like Billy Waugh, that basically was in Khartoum, Sudan. He was part of that operation where they called Carlos the Jackal with, guess who? Kofor Black, the head of the Counterterrorism Center in 1999. So basically, they were monitoring bin Laden before 96. And they had chances to kill him because Billy Waugh would relate back, hey, I'm jogging near his home in Khartoum. He does have a regiment of bodyguards, but I'm near him. I could probably kill him with a rock or something. But these operations, like drone strikes back then, were brand new. Pentagon didn't want to do it. CIA says we're not in the assassination program, which at that time weren't because of the Frank Church hearings after 9/11. Remember, the gloves were coming off. That's what Kofor Black said. And then back to killing and raping and freaking kidnapping people and torturing them. So they didn't want to do it. Nobody wanted to kill bin Laden, even though they were warning, hey, bin Laden is building an army, Khartoum, Sudan, that he goes to Afghanistan, surrounded by Taliban, giving him house protection. Nobody wanted to do it. Clinton, basically, how about this scenario for you? Clinton actually held a principals meeting with officials from the Pentagon intelligence services, and basically said that why can't the CIA go down? Why can't the special forces go down there and basically just commando out of these planes and just capture bin Laden and kill him? And Tommy Franks, the leader of SOCOM, basically said this guy watches too many Rambo films. That's how touched Clinton is, But then again, I mean, we don't vote for presidents based on their intelligence, do we? Anyway, you've had numerous chances to kill bin Laden in the 90s, and they didn't. Why? That's the question, right? They can speculate why, but we don't have an answer. So bin Laden, for you to say bin Laden's a boogeyman, God's sakes, man. He's on video in Jalalabad talking with Suleiman Abu Ghaith Media Committee and Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri in a room talking about the 9/11 attacks. He did an interview with Taysir Alawani of Al Jazeera in 2002 talking about the attacks. I have video. It's on my Odyssey. I can't upload it to YouTube, where he's meeting with Ramzi bin al-Shibh in Afghanistan. It's a short video clip. I downloaded it from Asahab Media, which is the media arm of Al-Qaeda. He's talking with people who are going to be the muscle hijackers at Tanak Farms. It's on Odyssey. Go. It's the conspiracy is bin Laden made it known that he was going to attack the United States and that planes were going to be used. That's coming from the Bachinka plot. That's 5 years prior to 9/11. It was not, the conspiracy is that they knew this was coming and they did nothing to stop it. That's the conspiracy.
But at the same time, you have to remember this network, according to, if you watch the film, Michael Springman, 17 of the 19 hijackers came from this one consulate in Saudi Arabia. Now, he had worked there, and he had denied.
I don't know if it's 17. The consular officer who approved of these applications was Shayna Steiger, and she had an assistant, but the assistant basically went on vacation, left her with enormous amount of work. And basically what happened was with the Visa Express program was that anybody who was deemed a Saudi resident could basically forego a face-to-face meeting. So in other words, they could drop off an application. And even if the application was incomplete, which most of the hijackers' applications were, because the muscle hijackers barely spoke English and left a lot of questions unanswered. Questions like, where were they going? How much money they had? Who were they meeting? How long are they staying? These questions were unanswered. A lot of them were, and they were incomplete. Some of them were incomplete. Only one, and Khalid Ahmadar and Nawaf Al-Hadmi got their visas in Riyadh. They didn't go through Jeddah. So, and that's how they got in the country. And according to Shayna Steiger, she says that she approved of all these applications because of the simple fact that, one, you had the Visa Express program running, which basically gave carte blanche of the Saudi residents to enter the United States because they didn't want to, hurt their interests, hurt the feelings of the country that they regulate oil from. And also, too, basically, this was going on under J. Michael Springman 10 years prior during the Afghan Civil War.
Denied certain people visas to come to the United States because they didn't appear that they needed visas. And then he was told to give them visas anyway. And then when he talked to different people that had worked in there, he said that was part of the U.S. program with bin Laden as an asset. Okay?
No, I don't know where you got that from. I'd like to, if you ever watch this video, I'd like to know what information you're using to make this declaration that bin Laden was allowed to coordinate operatives to come to the United States because there was this program in place. There was a program in place, and it was the CIA program that allowed for Afghan and Arab mujahideen to come to the United States and basically either facilitate monies to help in the fight against the Soviets or to recruit. Now, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri was a known member of the Egyptian radical cell, the Al-Jihad, or the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, as they were later called. This was known to the intelligence service as a dangerous group, but he was allowed to come to the United States using Ali Muhammad as a bodyguard. Ali Muhammad, who was a triple agent for the FBI, CIA, and Al-Qaeda, basically acted as a bodyguard for Dr. Ahmad-Zawahiri to do recruitment, fundraising operations in San Francisco. Abdullah Yusuf Azam was allowed to come to the United States, states like California, even Indianapolis. It's alleged that he met bin Laden there too. Omar Abdel Rahman, the blind sheikh, who's on a terrorist watch list. And the CIA actually gave him his U.S. visa to come into the country and approved of his application like 3 or 4 times. Yeah. So there's some truth to what you're saying here.
And I would just say this, if you believe anything on the bin Laden raid, first of all, who knows what happened there? I would read Hirsch's work on it, but then I would also point you towards the things that he had supposedly on his hard drive.
You had your film.
I think they actually made a documentary called, I think I have it, the bin Laden hard drive, where bin Laden supposedly had a copy of Loose Change.
I think this is made to make him look like a crackpot, right? Look what he had at the time. This is 2011 when they killed May 1st, 2011. And Loose Change came out, 4 years prior, I think. So it was the most popular film on 9/11 in the world, still is. But I mean, it's made to show that bin Laden was either watching, the silly theories that are proposed to him, or it's made to look like he's a crackpot. But
supposedly had a copy of Webster Tarpley's Synthetic Terror, supposedly even had a copy of Fritz Springmeier's 13 Bloodlines. Just saying. I mean, I know this sounds like something out of a bad James Patterson novel, right?
Think of it like this, Jason. You know, they captured far more dangerous individuals. Ramzi Youssef, for example, who travels, unlike bin Laden, who was basically the most wanted man in the world. Ramzi Youssef was a traveler, was an independent contractor. There may be some experts that say he's Al Qaeda. I don't know about that. He never met bin Laden, didn't swear bayat, which is loyalty, which is a prerequisite for joining Al Qaeda. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed traveled around the world, dangerous person. But they captured and Ramzi bin Al-Sheikh, a facilitator, courier, captured all these individuals in Pakistan. With Abu Zubaydah, there was a shootout. Actually, he got injured in the shootout. John Kiriakou was there. But they caught all of them. So you're telling me that they couldn't go into the safe house, which was guarded by the Pakistan ISI, and that the Navy, I think it was the red team or gold team, basically went in there and killed him. The man who the United States says is the reason behind the 9/11 attacks couldn't go in there and grab a 6'6", limping, 6 foot, very old. I think he was in his 60s then, but he was still wily, agile. He was sick, but he wasn't as sick as the truthers make him out to be. And this is coming from Dr. Al-Zwiri and Al Qaeda operatives that know him because he was still riding horseback. You ever tried doing that? It's hard. So basically, they couldn't capture him, bring him to the United States, the biggest fish. No, they killed him. And I believe they did, so that he wouldn't talk. He doesn't serve any purpose. Neither does Al Qaeda anymore. By that time, Al Qaeda is near decimated and basically is not a threat to the world because they were basically decimated during a program called Operation Jawbreaker, which was led by the CIA's Special Activities Division under Hank Crumpton and the U.S. Special Forces, which basically went to war with the Taliban and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan. If you never read that book, please do. Gary Bernstein was the leader of the operation, took it over from Gary Schroen, and it was a fantastic book. I'd love to interview Bernstein about it. Nevertheless, they basically almost destroyed all of Al Qaeda in that operation. But that bin Laden and Al Qaeda were allowed to escape because they couldn't get reinforcements because Tommy Franks told Gary Bernstein to use the Afghans. And what happened was bin Laden escaped into Pakistan, lived another 10 years. Why? Because Al Qaeda is more valuable to the United States. Why? Because at that time, in 2002, they still needed to tie Al Qaeda to Iraq. You can't do that with bin Laden and Al Qaeda dead. As long as bin Laden's out there, the danger is still out there. They can still use them as a threat to invade other countries. And we did. We did. Afghanistan was the longest war in U.S. history. Iraq ended in 10 years. And once bin Laden was killed and the final living member of Al Qaeda in the hierarchy was Dr. Al-Zwiri, and he was assassinated, Al Qaeda is officially over. It's over. The only Al Qaeda cells that are existing is Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. So,
Wish it was. Everything I'm telling you is documented. And don't worry, we'll eventually get to that day, and we'll also get to United 23 and how this isn't a new story. And again, how we covered it in a film 15 years ago.
And hijacked aircraft. The scenario also envisioned a hijacker taking control of a commercial aircraft and slamming it into the nation's capital. The exercises would constantly be monitored by military satellites and planes.
actually, the Capitol, the Pentagon, the World Trade Center were the targets by the planes operations operatives. And like I said, if you are careful and you listen, and I mean, if they were talking about these on the phone, and the CIA and the NSA knew about this, the CIA actually had a bug inside the Yemen hub, but they didn't have a bug on the phone. The NSA had a bug on the phone. They could listen to everything. And according to former senior executive of the NSA, Thomas Drake, he basically says that the NSA was the gold standard regarding intelligence. They have more intelligence than any agency in the world. Now, I don't know what the Israelis had. I don't know what the Saudis had because they were all deported after 9/11. So I can only imagine what they had too regarding they're on the ground next to these 9/11 operators, living near them. And with the Saudis, they were assisting them. God knows what these guys had. So what we can do is basically the NSA, pressure the NSA to release the documents regarding the transcripts of Bin Laden's satellite phone and the house in Yemen. And there's your neck. There it is. 9/11 right there, right? Because either one or two things are going to happen. One, Al Qaeda was talking about 9/11 on these phones, which means that for years, the NSA and CIA didn't share this information. It could have prevented 9/11, which means they're culpable. Or Al Qaeda wasn't talking about 9/11, and these were some other people. Either way, the government lied. So you understand, you see the scenario I'm trying to propose to you? Does this make sense? Yeah, sure. Of course it makes sense. Because either way, it doesn't look good for the American government and the intelligence services. It doesn't look good now, right?
Osama bin Laden was the poster boy for this plot, appearing on the cover.
Isn't it a fact, sir, that prior to September 11, 2001, NORAD had already in the works plans to simulate in an exercise a simultaneous hijacking of two planes in the United States?
Colonel Scott, do you have any data on that? I'm not aware of that, sir. I was not present at the time.
That was Operation Amalgam Virgo.
One.
Yes, sir. So what did happen on 9/11? The truth is, there was a lot more going on that day than we were being told.
Sure, I agree with that.
There were several war games and exercises being run simultaneously, involving multiple government agencies. John Fulton and a team from the CIA would be conducting a drill at 8:45 a.m. out of the National Reconnaissance Office in Chantilly, Virginia, in which a plane is crashed into a building. Other drills would literally cripple our defensive and investigative abilities on that morning.
And this is key. You heard all those other targets on the morning of 9/11. You're going to find out. And by the way, Sander Hicks did a really interesting book called The Big Wedding. Again,
by the way, that's a really good book. It talks about R.J. Abbas and this other guy, Mike Freeland, a Canadian who've actually warned the United States about the attacks, but he's in jail for some other unrelated crimes or whatever. R.J. Abbas was a Pakistani businessman who once said at a dinner with an operative working for the FBI, he was an informant, Randy Glass, which I think Fox News did an expose on, interviewed over, and basically was talking about weapons transactions, and he knew who bin Laden was. And basically when they left this dinner, which was near downtown Manhattan, basically looked up the World Trade Center and said, those towers are coming down. And is that story accurate? Probably. Why would Randy Glass lie? Because the FBI basically ignored him and called him, criminal, career criminal. Here's an informant working for the FBI. They're basically, criticizing him in the media lie. So look, I could probably.
If you follow what's been said about this, in the hijacker aspect of it, the Atta, Madar, Sherry, all these guys, that network.
I noticed you leave out the most susceptible hijacker of all that could lead to a bigger Israeli conspiracy, Ziad Jarrah, right? I wonder if you're aware of that one. His family connect. Yeah, I think you are. I think you do talk about it, I think. But yeah.
Supposedly the Big Wedding was everything coming together.
It's a good book, by the way. I mean, I don't get along with Sander Hicks anymore, but that I would recommend that book to anybody. It was a fantastic book, nevertheless.
And there was this list that the supposed ex-ONI officer who was totally sketchy and who's in Canadian prison at the time has and
Mike,
is warning people this is going to happen on 9/11. Now, what really interests me about that list is it's almost identical to the same list that the governor of Maryland, Paris Glendening, is going to say they got on the morning of 9/11 through law enforcement before anything happened. Is that going to be the next TMZ investigation?
But this very
I like to dig with TMZ. By the way, thank goodness for TMZ, right? I mean, of all the media outlets, TMZ broke this story. But that's just, I mean, that serves Jason's point here regarding the legacy media. I mean, they were talking about this. It's not new. Flight 23. It's been known to people. It's been known to public sphere. I didn't report it as early as Jason did, but I did talk about it on my podcast 3 years ago. I mean, I was talking about Flight 23 when I first came across it back in 2007, but I wasn't active on social media. Still learning my way through. Yeah, interesting that TMZ would do that. But hey, if TMZ could do that story, what else could they do?
Very interesting information, Katie, Matt, and Tom, from the FBI. They have been operating a massive exercise from their hostage rescue unit. All of their top teams, about 50 personnel, helicopters, equipment, were in Monterey, California for the last 2 days, scheduled to fly back today commercially.
Right.
So all of those people are out of place. It's fair to say, according to sources that we've talked to here at NBC, that the FBI rescue operations and other FBI operations are really in chaos right now because they can't reach their officials in New York. All of their phone lines are down. And now you've got all of their special experts on this stuck in Monterey, California, trying to get a military flight back because there are no longer commercial flights. So they
just want to point out that several of the hijackers also trained in a military facility where the vice chancellor of that facility blew the whistle. He actually said something like Bush knew of the attacks, and I'm not saying that.
Okay, I know about this. These are people with similar sounding names to the hijackers. They didn't go to this military station. They didn't train there, right? These are people with Arabs have similar sounding names. You know, there's one. I mean, truthers. Some truthers are basically saying, "Well, the hijackers are alive." There's a Saudi Arabian pilot named Abdulaziz Rahman Al Amari. He wasn't involved with 9/11. That's right. There was an Abdulaziz Rahman Al Amari, who was a Saudi pilot, but he was not Abdulaziz Al Amari, the hijacker of Flight 11. Notice the name. Abdulaziz Rahman Al Amari is who the truthers claim is Abdulaziz Al Amari. Rahman is missing. And if you look at the pictures of both men, they are entirely different. One's an older man with a mustache. The other one's a younger man with clean shaven hair and short cropped hair. So it's wrong. And look, they've interviewed the families of these hijackers. They did exist. They are dead. They're not out there anywhere. No one's ever interviewed them after 9/11. They're all gone. Most likely these are dead people because dead men don't tell tales. But I'll stop it here. I don't want to go on too much longer. I just wanted to bring up some points regarding Jason here. I'm glad he's talking about it, bringing attention to it. But we do have some disagreements regarding certain aspects of 9/11, regarding plane swaps. That's all. So I'll see you guys later in the next video. Take care.